Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to the Caribbean Linked Black Box Artist Talks. So, the Caribbean Link program is a very special program where artists, writers, and curators from around the Caribbean region come and live together and work together for 3 weeks, putting on an exhibition and giving a chance for you watching at home, you watching here at Atelier 89 in Aruba, to learn more about their practices and contemporary art in the Caribbean. Thank you very much to all of our generous sponsors for making this program possible. Thank you to Atelier 89, Fresh Milk in Barbados, and ARC Magazine for being the co-founders of this program. And thank you to everybody here tonight. Our first speaker tonight is St. Martin artist Claudio Arnel, who works primarily with painting, sculpture, and photography as a way to explore the parallel paths between reality and imagination. He is constantly challenging himself through his process and his investigation into the melting pot of Caribbean culture. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Claudio Arnel.
Hello? Yes, everyone. Thank you, everyone, thank you, first of all, Caribbean Link, Atelier 89. I was born in 89, actually, so I find it's a specific sign. And thank you to Aruba also for welcoming us all as creatives. So my name is Claudio Arnel. I'm from the island of St. Martin. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my practice, about some of my work, and have you discover a little bit my universe. So let's go. So I'm going to start with this piece. This is the emblem of the French side of the island of St. Martin, the government commune of Guadeloupe, collectivité d'outre-mer. So before I even embark on this, I really want to paint the picture of the island. It's it's one island with two different parts. There's a Dutch part and a French part of the island. And administratively, so they're different. And we mainly speak English. English is our mother tongue. And you go to school on the French side, you learn French. You go to school on the Dutch side, you learn English. So that's the basis of the island. And when I was 20 years old, I created the emblem, the official emblem of the French side of the island. The concept was the future of the island encrusted with so the future of the island encrusted in its past and heritage mainly. So what I wanted to do is I presented them a painting of which encompasses really the flora, the fauna, the landscape, the history with the slave walls on the bottom, the obelisks, and also the friendly sharing hands of salt, because before it was called the Martin, it was actually called Swaliga Island of Salt. And this is the version that's more virtual, and this emblem could be seen on different administrative documents and also my license. It's a cool element. And I'm gonna start by showing you different photographies where you could see a little bit my eye and what I search when I'm behind the camera. I always look for, and I started photography after painting. So what I say is I usually do, and well, not fast, but it's visuals. This is the first time I ever saw sargassum, and it was the summer right before Irma. So it was in June 20. This was shot in June 2017. in Hurricane Irma was in September. And there was this, I don't know, cloud of sargassum seaweed. And I shot this picture then and sent bars. This is, I'll come back to this picture. So what I do with photography, I treat it as a medium, kind of like a scientist, where I look for colors, I look digital aspect, I go what is visible, what is not, what is defined and not. This was a work that was done from broken television screens. This one also. So also, I probably didn't talk about my journey in the arts. I graduated in science when I left the island. I graduated in science in Saint Martin. Then I left and I changed. I left for France, Paris, to be precise, and I started going to school in the arts. So I started with design art at first for like, let's say the 3 to 4 first years was design. I did one preparatory year where you do fashion design, product design, space design, graphic design. I specialize in interior decoration, frescoes and mosaics. And then I went to the Sorbonne faculty in Paris, where I did a bachelor and a master's, and I finished with Les Beaux-Arts in France. So during my master's, I really that's where I started this series, because photography I really work it with in series, and it was those broken television screens. So my whole idea was to capture what your subconscious captures, that moment that the subconscious sees, but not you're not really conscious of it. So I stayed hours in front of broken television screens taking photography, and the fact that it was broken, there was this red glitch that gave it texture, and from that I use my photography as sources of paint. So like a painter would go and get different paint colors. I capture I capture images, and I find some of them, because obviously some of them work on their own. So this is what I'm going to show you. So there was an infrared, and then there was a green version, because I wanted to play with when I presented them for my master's. The whole idea was going from photography back, because in art history we left painting and we went towards photography, and today we're in an era where photography is such a common practice, and everyone kind of has a camera in their pocket. I wanted to see if I could bring back a sensitivity to, and for me it was true destruction. So this is another, this I think was my computer that was broken, and so I always, instead of throwing away, I make art from it. And yeah, so these are my first paintings, where the whole idea was around my memory. Especially living in abroad, I kind of was how should I say, forgetting a little bit the smells, of the Caribbean, the impressions of the Caribbean. So I started this series of painting based a little bit on impressionism, where I try to paint my dreams and my memories that were kind of blurry, and so that's why it's very much unfinished in the painting also, and there is also some sewing that I was starting to really test out back then. Yeah, this is some oil painting. And here we're back on some photography. And these are my sketches. Oh yeah, so drawing. Everything really started with drawing with me because back then, even when I was in science and when I was younger, art was something that was very sacred. It was a little bit my personal garden, and I used to draw very much, and it like helped me with observation, and I feel like that also helped for going into photography later on. Okay, these are some sculptures I did since I came back to the island. Because obviously in 2017, so there was a Hurricane Irma that kind of shifted a little bit the paradigm of the island. My life specifically, I lost everything in my studio space, and I had to start back from scratch. And these were really the first works that I did. It was for the Heineken Regatta, and I was commissioned to do 12 trophies, and this is 4 out of the 12. And so all the metals are recuperated from shipwrecks that were literally on the road and everything. So I worked with a company called FKG on the Dutch side, and we made these works together. Toils and or during Irma, they were like mountains of roof that was because we had to clean up. It was a long process of cleaning up. And remembering this whole idea, I called it shelter because it was very strange because I felt like I needed to protect myself and create my armor, and in a way, that's what I came up with. And the compositions. Okay, this is a treaty, an exhibition that was actually done in the Canary Islands on my photography of Irma, post Irma. This was for the 10-year anniversary of the Chamber of Commerce on the French side, and I called it Platforms. So it's a diptych painted with different layers where photography is also intertwined within the canvas. 2019. So from my photography, I started using nature as a subject matter, where I took photography of plants that were growing after the hurricane because the land was very much devastated, and it took a while actually to push back again from the earth. And for me, that was the first sign of hope. So I used that of inspiration, and from that I created these digital frescoes. So there are 9 pieces, kind of a clash in composition, and there's volume also. It's printed on PC and different elements. So I really truly was inspired by the mosaic teachings in my studies for this one. And on the side, it's a more calming. I kind of want the peacefulness of a cemetery, like tombs, and just simple compositions and series. For this one, this is a piece that I did with Color Me XXM, an association on the Dutch side of the island, where the whole idea was to do street art on broken down buildings that from the hurricane never really got up. And so I did a piece on the Fisherman Tale. It's in Phillipsburg on Front Street. So this piece incorporates my photography. From my photography, I created this composition with the longitude and latitude of the port. And there's this poem that I wrote that, let's see if I have time to read it. Yeah. People's hustling and bustling, making haste, even though there is ample time to be cherished on the wooden jetty. As if the past, the continent, the sister isles are already left behind. Here comes the future, projecting departures, chock-full of dizziness, the promise of a miraculous catch, of wondrous surprises, the turbulence, the rumbling, the confusion that emerge from the greeting, in the getting together again for the present, an array of uncountable sunsets, innumerable facial expressions, and unmeasurable mixtures of colors. Our waterfront not only mirrors us or reveals our true selves by giving us a clear picture of whom we are to become, but it expects us not to forget where we came. And in this time and space, here comes the moment of the feast. Upon hearing such a word, one thing of the burst of joy, of laughter, the all time good feeling of being reunited around lavish and enjoyable feasts. Such great feasts always create an exchange of tastes and emotions. How delightful, as if encrusted in turquoise like case. It en- sorry, it incites delightful table gatherings and the enhancements of such a historic area, a place of travel where one simply surrenders to his imagination. A work of art is a gift given to man as a token of permanent metamorphosis. As a local artist and child of the soil, I am greatly honored to be part of that metamorphosis of my island, or sorry, of my island, full stop. And so this piece was quite interesting because at the beginning there was the composition that I did at the forefront, and on the side I got carried away, and this was really kind of a freestyle, um, meaning that I found it was limited and too small, and I had a lot more to say, so I expressed on the side where it was possible, and yeah, it really I wanted something serious, graphic, but also play with that duality. Here is a project that I did thanks to Cultural Participati and Axam Art Cafe on the Dutch side. It's a piece that I entitled Inside Outside, where the concept was to really have the spectator immersed into a painting. So what I proposed was a 360 painting in the space. So all walls were the vertical walls were covered in canvas, and some parts was encouraged. I mean, the spectators were encouraged to write, draw, and participate in building the piece. And so the whole idea was also to create a painting that you could look at 360, meaning you do the turn, you would see the gradient of colors reflecting also the decomposition of the white light. And each wall represent an element. So there was water, earth, fire, and air. And it's a piece that I did during COVID. So I spent a lot, I mean, it was supposed, it's the challenge in this piece was it's a public area. So it's an area, it's an art gallery and an art cafe. But during the creation of the piece, it really evolved because COVID happened, and within that process, uh, it went towards more like a area for me, and I have a lot of work, a lot of time was spent with it, and yeah. We also during the work in March of 2022 created a Afro Fest film festival where there were three artists, video as so move. I mean, video artists that had their work projected, and mainly there was a work entitled Atlantis Rebirth by the artist. He's a dancer, Jonathan, and a dear friend. He's a dancer. So with collaborating with him, what was important for me was to bring the world of dance and the world of painting, the visual arts, and bring those two together, but also with two different mediums, meaning film and also murals. So these are some images of the details where I wanted to really incorporate So as we can see here, there's the digital work, there's the hand painted work, and then there's the reality. So how to play with perception. This piece, it's a piece, one of my recent pieces. It would be exposed in the wine cellar at La Samana, Belmont, which is a great, amazing hotel chain that just signed with LVMH, for example, and they're very much open to collaborating with artists on the island. And so I got this opportunity to collaborate with them and present this piece where, for me, it's a kind of a research piece where, from the rest of my material that I had from the cemetery, I created this from the rest, the scratches that I had. So they're all pictures of photography of nature that I cut out, hand cut, and sticked, and then it's hard to explain. I would love to show you a video, but it's very detailed work. It took me a good, like, it was during the quarantine I did this, actually. So we had only one quarantine, like 4 months, I guess. And yeah, it's a diptych piece. For me, there's a religious aspect to it. There's also the fact that I was inspired by stained glasses to bring light into the space without really putting light, but just visually how to bring light. And yeah, it's a interesting piece. And also, what I like with it is the fact that it's a piece that is recycled mainly. And this is my last piece that I'm going to show you guys, which will be the source of what I'm going to be doing, the inspiration of what I'm going to be working Atelier 89 for my residency. The hand of my grandma that passed away December of last year, and I entitled it Roots. And yeah, it's a piece that, for me, speaks mainly about the Caribbean, my Caribbean. And also that reminds me, shockingly, different, how should I say, the wood, I mean the trunks of the different trees in Aruba, like the DV tree with a different kind of veins in the trees. So that's where I'm at right now with my process. Is a last matter is like verse falling in the hands of the artist to embody it. But that's my work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudio, for that beautiful presentation. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask?
Hey, what's up?
What's up? What's up?
I've become the court jester, the guy that always asks the questions.
Yes.
I had a question. You had a slide that you said you were going to return to,
Oh yeah.
and
Thank you.
and so I wanted the context.
Yes. So the context is Irma, but I find like it was placed before. But let's go back to it. Yeah, it's interesting because I forgot to talk to you about that aspect of my work. Is that I'm a teacher also on the island. It's been 5 years since I came back. I teach. I teach in 5 different schools between 2 islands, St. Barth and St. Martin, on 3 levels and 2 subjects, meaning design art and fine arts. Students of mine, we had an outing and usually with the Education Nationale, I also work as a photographer. And so yeah, this is interesting because mainly my work, like I said, I'm focused on nature, or even when I when I take pictures of landscapes, there's usually not humans in the space. And these, as you could notice, are the few pictures where I have humans in movement, usually the youth. because yeah, I find it's always have an eye on the youth. And this I found it was I think a so this picture is a composition of two images put on. And the first one, this is actually a family member's home that got slit, sliced in two. It was super impressive to see, actually. And and the other one is students that are coming out of the water in formation. And I found it was very strong in that sense where I don't know, when I look at the youth, I see, so I'm very inspired by body language. And in this picture, I find there's a strong body language of determination, resilience. I feel is all about resilience. Also, young boy and of the Caribbean, and going forward, and always going forward. And so the youngest one has his head high. Teenagers, they're in you know, because I feel like also the our generation being so much on our phones, I think our morphology, because when I did science I was very much I specialize in biology. And yeah, I find like we're mostly looking down instead of looking up to life. So I wanted to build a contrast in this picture.
Cool. Yeah. Well, now I can ask my questions about it
Yes,
if I'm allowed to.
of
Am I allowed
course.
to? All right. Cool. So yeah, I like. There's a when I saw it the first time, I liked the concept of them kind of looking down, marching, kind of going and all in the same kind of unison direction. Even their shadows are all going in the same direction. But I thought it was interesting to see how the kid, even though he's in a separate photo, is almost following suit. And there's enough of a gap between the two that it's almost as if like you could do a bunch of metaphors to like that could be people before him because there is no context of time other than the clothes, but then it could also be people like his older brothers or cousins or things that he looks up to and before the storm. And then also I can see there's like some bleed. The hill in the background is it actually hits the top of the building and kind of comes up. So and there's some yeah, I just like it. So I just
It's
wanna-
always a play with the perception. I feel like the eyes are the windows to the soul, and I like to play with observation and from my youngest age. And thanks for noticing the hill, because, like in French, you say construction, deconstruction, construction, deconstruction. I always like the finesse and the fine lines, and that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool.
Let's-
Thanks, man. I just wanted to yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for Claudio?
Mm.
Claudio, thanks for the presentation. A question.
you.
I see from the period that you were studying, like in France or right after that, your work was sort of more abstract. When you came back to St. Martin and was confronted with the reality and confronted with, let's say, such a violent force as a Hurricane Irma that totally destroyed the island of St. Martin, I'm sort of curious as to how your paintings after the fact of the hurricane are very sort of reverting back to sort of traditional styles and also more like an idyllic nature and not the menace and destruction and the force that nature had just provoked. Is this part of your message that you were trying to communicate, or?
Yeah, I feel like towards the end of my journey in Europe, before I came back to the island and experienced Irma, I was already in my work trying to leave the figurative kind of academic techniques that I learned in school, because I did those schools where it's very much proportions and base. And so I was already trying to break the line then. And then Irma happened, which was literally me breaking the line in my real life and in three-dimensional realm. And so from there, I think I kind of went towards hope was the inspiration, like I was saying, with the nature. When everything happened, you know, when with Irma, there was for different months, for like many months after, because not only the hurricane happened, but there was the trauma after, the looting, the all kind of things went down. Actually, it kind of reminded me, I don't play video games, but it kind of reminded me like a video game, one of those like army war games. And so it was just very destructive all around the board. And I think it was necessary. Hope was necessary for me. And so that's where it really started, with taking photography of nature, because when you had those first flowers coming out, the green was extremely green, and society wasn't picking back up. Was, you know, I mean, we had a hard time. It was a real slap, and nature did quicker than we would ever expect. And so for me, that was a sign, the guidance. And so I went that direction. Yeah, color, hope, and nature. Yeah.
Thank you. Could we have a question?
I don't know if it's a question to be answered now, but I was
Okay.
watching, and you've been mentioning the importance of color in the relation to your work. And I was also, by looking again at the last image you showed, and your intention to also create a relationship of duelo, of honoring, but also grieving.
Yeah.
I was wondering how may the relationship with color perhaps create a different kind of environment with this particular intention that you're now embracing in the work you'll be doing here.
Yes. So color is something that is a subject matter that I really dove into. I dived in when did my bachelor's. I specialized it in art therapy. And during that time, there was a lot of study around colors and how it the emotional aspect of color, how it is therapeutic for this, for your, like, emotionally. And obviously the subject matter is one that's filled with emotions. And I feel like color is something, being a Caribbean child, you grow up in colors. For me, I grew up in, when I was in France, my teachers would tell me, you're sensitive to color. The fact that you grew up, and I feel like all of us that grew up in the Caribbean, here in Aruba, when I look at the buildings, it's full of colors, even more than St. Martin. So I feel like you have a sensitivity of it. And also, the last thing I would say, the picture itself has colors. My grandmother, her house was colorful, her spirit was colorful, you know. And I think also when you see there are people of color, I like wordplay, and so that also is part of the mix. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, if anybody. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Ethan.
Oh,
Ethan.
Yeah, so I just wanted to hear more about the TV works, the works that are like the smash TV screens or computer
Yeah.
screens. I wanted to hear more about your methodology, because I really enjoy visually the effects, but I want to hear more about how you achieved them. So what was your methodology like for these works?
So I was having this discussion not too long ago while having dinner. Technology and me has always been in a war. It's very real in my life. And so yeah, it's not hard to find technical objects that are so the title of this for my master's was Vision défectueuse, defective vision. And so, for example, like I was saying, what I did was really, I was a photograph taking pictures and movement, but I use television or my, so because usually what I wanted to question was the images that are projected. So whenever we're looking at television, being that, you know, I grew up in the 80s, 90s, and television was very prominent in the household. these are images when you study them that are already, entre guillemets, in French you say léché, meaning they're already treated, they're already programmed to like feed the public, and everything is already edited. But I found that the fact that the object in itself that is obsolete, and also soon like television at around that period was becoming an archaic object, I felt like through the grace of it fading away, magic happening, a magic of layers also, because there's a screen that's broken, and I just was taking photography of those objects that are broken down, but still finding the way to project an image abstractly. So yeah. So it was very manual in a way, because oh yeah, my photography, I never retouch. Everything is done before the click. Don't have Photoshop on my computer. That's too much to ask. So yeah, everything is done on I prefer it like that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Claudio, and thank you to
Thank
everyone for
you.
your questions. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to start back at 8 o'clock, where our next speaker is going to be Aruban artist Romelinda Maldonado.